Good morning,
Good afternoon.
and good evening.
or whatever time you
will see this video.
once again,
Once again,
Once again,
and I am Jessica Gil.
I am Hannah Obial Katigan
I'm Renel A. Ulimpay.
I am Jerry Jun de Seraclon.
I am Enrico Biriquino.
from Section A, Course Bachelor of Science in Criminology.
Reporting of the summary of the first site of Mass in the Philippines. The first documented Catholic Mass in the Philippines was held on March 31, 1521, on Easter Sunday. It was conducted by Father Pedro de Valderrama of Ferdinand Magellan expedition along the shores of what was referred to in the journals of Antonio Pigafetta as Masawa. In the shore of a town islet named as Limasawa, in a tip of southern Leyte. Limasawa is dubbed as the birthplace of Roman Catholicism in the Philippines. On Easter Sunday, Father Pedro de Valderrama celebrated the first Mass in the Philippines. The intensive Christianization process of the island would start only with the coming of the Legazpi expedition in 1565, which brought the first missionaries, the Augustinians. On March 31, 1521, on Easter Sunday, Magellan ordered a Mass to be celebrated, which was officiated by Father Pedro Valderrama, the Andalusian chaplain of the fleet, the only priest then, conducted near the shores of the island. The first Holy Mass marked the birth of Roman Catholicism in the Philippines. Colombo and Sayo were the first natives of the archipelago, which was not yet named Philippines until the expedition of Roy Lopez de Villalobos in 1543 to attend the Mass among other native inhabitants. Francisco Alvo, boatswain and navigator from the island of Rhodes. Originally boatswain of the Trinidad in Ferdinand Magellan's expedition, he then became pilot of the Victoria under the command of Sebastian de Elcano. Francisco Alvo, the pilot of the Victoria and the only ship to complete the first circumnavigation, kept a log of the voyage, the diaro or the derrotero, or the diary or course. Father Pedro de Valderrama. Father Pedro de Valderrama, the chaplain of the expedition led by Fernando de Magallanes or Ferdinand Magellan, was the only priest in Magellan's crew who was given the task of celebrating the first Holy Mass on the shores of Limasawa, an island of the tip of southern Leyte that was documented by Antonio Pigafetta. According to Pigafetta, about 800 natives, including Cebu's chieftain Raha Humabon and his wife Hara Humamay, were baptized. Antonio Pigafetta was an Italian scholar and explorer. He joined the expedition to the Spice Islands led by explorer Ferdinand Magellan under the flag of the Emperor Charles V, and after Magellan's death in the Philippines island, the subsequent voyage around the world. Pigafetta has the merit to have recorded in his chronicles a major event of the history of the Philippines, the first encounter between Filipinos and Europeans. His work report of the first voyage around the world includes the earliest documents available on the language and culture of the islands of Samar and Cebu. He is considered as an eyewitness of the significant events happened in the first Mass, of which Magellan names it the islands of Saint Lazarus, that is later called the Philippine Archipelago. Controversies between Masawa and Butuan. First is that Francisco Albo writes that the cross erected on the mountain, which overlooked three islands, the west and the southwest of Limasawa. The second is in the diary of Pigafita, the port was not in Butuan but in Masawa. Third, all maps of Pigafita were studied by Father Bernard, and it said that all their travels are connected to Limasawa and not in Butuan. Jaime Carlos Diaz de Vera. He was a resident commissioner to the U.S. House of Representatives from the Philippine Islands and governor of Leyte, who stated that the first mass in the Philippines was in Limasawa, not in Butuan. In Masao, 1872. It is said that the monument to commemorate the first site of Mass in the Philippines was in Butuan. In 1872, a Spanish district governor erected a marble monument of Magallanes, then the center of Butuan, to celebrate Magellan's first arrival and the commemoration of the first Mass. On the other hand, in 1958, the National Historical Commission placed an historical marker at Barrio Magallanes, Limasawa Island, commemorating the same events. There are three evidences of Limasawa that proves its first site mass in the Philippines. First is the Francisco Albo logbook. The second one is Antonio Pigafita diary, which included the maps, the testimony of their route, and etc. And the third one is the confirmatory evidence of Legazpi expedition. Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, also known as El Adelantado and El Viejo or the Elder, was a Spanish navigator and the governor who established the first Spanish settlement in the East Indies when his expedition crossed the Pacific Ocean from the Viceroyalty of New Spain in modern-day Mexico, arriving in Cebu in the Philippine Islands in 1565. He was the first Governor-General of the Spanish East Indies, which was governed from and mainly located in the Philippines. In 1564, the expedition to Guam in the Philippines, Legazpi was commissioned by the Viceroy to lead a naval expedition across the Pacific to establish a colony in the Philippines and discover the long south-return sea route from Asia to the Americas. And also, Miguel Lopez de Legazpi introduced Christianity to the Philippines in 1565 in the Philippines. On the other hand, the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, or the NHCP, settled the controversy over the official site of the 1521 Easter Sunday Mass in the country by favoring Limasawa in southern Leyte instead of Masao in Butuan City. Up until 1921, it was believed that the event was held somewhere near the mouth of Agusan River in what is today the municipality of Magallanes, Agusan del Norte. The shift to the Limasawa tradition happened following the publication of the transcription of the logbook from a pilot of the ship Victoria, one of the vessels in the Magellan expedition, stating that the crew placed a cross on the island called Masawa, whose location is closer to Cebu. And that's all, thank you.
And now, let's proceed to my topic, what's the relevance of Magellan's circumnavigation around the world? So before we continue, let's recap that in the first topic, it tackled the first site mass of the Philippines, or it tackled the history of the Philippines from the past decades. So anyways, let's go back to my topic, what's the relevance of Magellan's circumnavigation around the world? The question is, did we benefit from it? And now let's talk about it. The circumnavigation completed by Magellan's expedition thus confirmed the conception of the world as a globe. In Magellan's circumnavigation, or when he was exploring the world, his voyage was the opening chapter in the rise of the global trade, or what we call kalakalan, and globalization defines our world today. And speaking of globalization, we can't deny the fact that we are more globalized because of the past transactions and easy communication. It has also generated important scientific knowledge, including more information about the world or the Earth's circumference, and new understandings about the global time. Ferdinand Magellan, as we all know, he was an explorer, and while exploring the world, he possessed an extensive knowledge of map making and sailing. The reason he already had the years of experience sailing, and the reason also he reached the Philippines. And it was tackled in the first topic, the first sight mass of the Philippines. And of what did he bring us? What did he bring in the Philippines? And one of that is the religion, the start of the Catholic religion. In Magellan's exploring the world, he leaves the legacy, a memory, that what we called the history, that could help us discover some places too without experiencing it. But because of him, because of the history that still remains, because of Ferdinand Magellan and his being an explorer and navigator, that nor who shares or a souvenir, a remembrance that remains a history that we could go back even after now.
The topic that assigned to me is Cavite Immunity. The Cavite Immunity of 1872 was an uprising of Filipino military personnel of Fort San Felipe. The Spanish arsenal in Cavite on January 20, 1872, around 200 locally recruited colonial troops and laborers, in the belief that it would elevate to a national uprising. The immunity was unsuccessful, and government soldiers executed many of the participants and began to crack down a burgeoning Philippine nationalist movement. They believed that Cavite Immunity of 1872 was the beginning of Filipino nationalism that could eventually lead to the Philippine Revolution of 1896. Cavite Immunity was founded by Fernando La Madrid. The cause of Cavite Immunity. The Cavite Immunity is an aim of the Filipino to get rid of the Spanish government in the Philippines due to the removal of privilege enjoyed by the laborers of the Cavite arsenal, such as exemption from the tribute and forced labor. The execution of Gomborza. On February 15, 1872, the Spanish colonial authorities sentenced three martyrs, Father Jose Burgos, Mariano Gomez, and Jacinto Zamora, to death by garrote at Bagumbayan, Philippines, and charged with treason, sedition, and subversion. The charge against Father Father Gomez, Burgos, and Zamora was their alleged complicity in the uprising of workers at Cavite Naval Yard. It was believed by the Spanish government that Filipino will create its own government, and allegedly the three Price were nominated as the leader of the planned government in order to break free of the Spanish government. Aside the execution of Gomborza, they also execute 13 mutineers to death.
Let's tackle about history and its importance. So, history is the knowledge of and study of the past life of people. So, it is the story of the past and a form of collective memory. History is the story of who we are, where we came from, and can potentially reveal where we are headed. So, through history, we can learn how past societies, systems, ideologies, governments, cultures, and technologies were built, how they operated, and how they have changed. The rich history of the world help us to part a detailed picture of where we stand today. So, by getting knowledge of history, we can change our old belief system, which needs to be changed with time and become better and better. So, by knowing about different stories about the world, we can inculcate our morals and beliefs and become the best version of ourselves. So, there are 5 benefits of studying history in school. So, first, it helps you develop essential life skills. Second, it helps you understand identity. Third, it makes you a more rounded person. Fourth, it shows us how our time is same or different to past periods. And the last, which is, it offers an opportunity to visit and study in historical sites. That's all.
As a future peacemakers, in what history could help you in doing your work?
As a future peacemakers, knowing and understanding the history of events in our country allows us to observe and understand how people and societies behave. Thus, there is no particular history that could help us do our work, but rather all part of the history, even the tiniest glimpse of idea from it, plays an immensely substantial role in developing knowledge and expertise that could aid us doing our work effectively. Since history is a study of past events, it means that such events are interconnected with each other, and it's what makes our present nowadays. In line with this, histories provide us data that is used to create laws or theories about various aspects of society, which could help us to be an effective and efficient peacemakers in the future, such that we are able to evaluate war or conflict, even a nation is at peace, by looking at previous events. Hence, all part of this history help us do our work satisfactorily and effectively, as every part of it paints a detailed picture of how society and people itself would make a world of peace and harmony. That's all. Thank you.
Once again,
You once again.
I am Jessica Gil.
I am Hana Obiag Katigan.
And I'm Renel A. Ulimpay.
And I am Jerry Jun Desera Aklon.
I'm Enrico Biriquino.